We're the only oral healthcare association that has as its sole focus infection prevention education. So that's who we are. And everybody can be a member. We have clinicians, we have educators, we have consultants who are members, and we have the manufacturers and the distributors of infection control products. So it's such a unique combination of members.
I'm going to still say it's dental unit order lines because I think that there's so many different options for treatment and for maintenance that drives a little confusion. There is still a lot of room for education because think about it, typically it's that frontline worker that is in charge of these processes. And I think that there's still a great deal of interest and need for education.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, an Endeavor Business Media production. This is episode number 390. I am your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for making us a part of your day. The thought process behind this episode began when one of our guests, Michelle Lee, who you've all, well, I want to say all of you, but maybe those longtime listeners have heard her on the podcast before, and maybe even listened to her podcast when she had it with A Tale of Two Hygienists in the past. We were talking about how important it is to have an organization like OSAP in our dental world and also for our patients in the bigger scheme of things in the bigger world. And it had been quite some time since we had them on the program. In fact, I think it's probably way overdue. So for you new listeners out there, and maybe for you old listeners a little bit too, but for you new listeners, we are going to talk to you about an organization called OSAP. We're going to talk about what it is. We're going to talk about the things that they're doing to help make our appointments safer for both us and for the patients, and then options for membership. They have a really good membership program. A lot of our best friends, our thought leaders in the dental hygiene world are a member. It's just something you're going to want to be a part of. So make sure you look into that. You're also going to hear about an updated version of that beautiful video that we all watched when we were in hygiene school, If Saliva Were Red. And they talk a little bit about some of the things that they updated. So make sure you give that video a watch when you have some time. I think it also might be a good time to maybe update the rest of your office on the new video. So it's a good teaching tool. Coming up on the weeks ahead, we have some really great shows coming, but I want to talk to you just for a quick second about some of our past episodes recently, because I've really enjoyed the topics that we've had. If you get our newsletter, this is going to be a quick little review because we do a recap at the end of every month that has all of the episodes that were on in the previous month. But if you don't get our newsletter, make sure you head over to A Tale of Two Hygienists website and sign up for it. This can't possibly be brand new information, but did you all know that we work with Katrina Sanders each week to bring you some really, really good episodes? And the premise of her episodes each Monday is to bring you perio-related episodes in less than 10 minutes. We did some surveys for the last several years. Everyone wants to know more about perio and everyone wants shorter content. So we packaged those things together, had the amazing Katrina Sanders create some stuff with us, and that's every Monday. She'll take research and studies, and then she puts them into words that we all understand. She helps us by giving us talking points that we can cover with our patients during our appointments. And I know that probably I'm supposed to say, well, this is, and I will say it in a few minutes because it is true too, but it's not necessarily just for educating our patients, but sometimes our appointments can be stale. Sometimes we need something new to talk about with our patients. And this is something that's going to help pass the time. It's going to help make it not so boring and monotonous for every appointment. I think that you really, really will like if you take the information that she gives and insert it into your everyday practice. It's really quite amazing because she takes the things that you're seeing. She'll take the topics of the types of patients that you're seeing. So for example, we just had several of them. One was on diabetes. One was with kids. One was with pregnant patients. And she takes those topics and she finds studies that relate to those subgroups. So you know how sometimes you're explaining how important the treatment is for the patient and they're just like not paying attention? She gives you the evidence and those talking points that you need to help your patient understand your position. It's going to help them self-diagnose. It's going to help them understand the severity of the disease that they have. And the upside to that is that they're going to look at you as a healthcare provider and not a tooth scraper, but only if you have next level conversations with them. So don't sleep on those episodes. They're really amazing. Every Monday is when they come out. We have also had a few bonus episodes come out recently, and one of them actually is going to come out, hasn't come out yet. It'll come out next Saturday, and it's really exciting. So bonus episodes are usually sponsored content. Now, before you turn away from that, I want to tell you, one of the things that we tell our sponsors is that they still need to bring the scientific discussions or at least help us solve a real problem that exists in dentistry or in our dental hygiene world. So for example, you might have missed the one where we talked about nanohydroxyapatite with Dr. Jen. If you did, go back and give that one a listen. It is really incredible the things that they shared with us. Further, in the show notes, there's a ton of literature that you can pour over if you want to. And then this Saturday, we're releasing an episode with Bola.ai that uses artificial intelligence to help write our chart notes and do perio charting and who knows what else. You have to listen to that one. You have to see what they're doing. That's building upon the foundation of the things that we already had in our recent past. It's pretty incredible. I am very grateful for all of you who are spending your summers still tuning into the show. I know there's lots of vacations happening, ADHA, RDH under one roof, lots of trips happening. Your routines, they're just absolutely ruined, but you still show up, you still make time. I couldn't be prouder of you for caring this much about your craft, this much about your patients, this much about your work. If there's anything I can do in return for you, just name it. If there's someone that you want to have on the show, please send me an email, andrew@atale2hygienist.com, and I will do what I can absolutely 100%. And with that, please enjoy this reacquaintance possibly with Michelle Lee from OSAP and her friend, Karen Gregory.
A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome in, everyone, to the interview portion of the podcast. Really excited. We have Karen and returning guest, Michelle Lee. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you for including me.
I am really excited about the topics that we're going to be talking about because one, this is a maybe admitted, I mean, I shouldn't say this out loud to everyone listening, but this is a weak spot for me. Like the reason why we love partnering with Michelle Lee is because all the OSAP, infection prevention, infection control, all of the different tools and resources that you all have that help people like me who desperately need all of this help. So welcome back. Can you actually, for the people who maybe are listening to this for the first time or new listeners, can you give us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'll start. So Michelle Lee, Executive Director of OSAP. And yes, there are some people out there listening that I am sure have no idea who OSAP is. A lot less than when I first came on your podcast years ago, because we've grown quite a bit. And throughout the pandemic, the exposure for OSAP has been huge. But we are the Organization for Safety, Asepsis, and Prevention. We're the only oral healthcare association that has as its sole focus infection prevention education. So that's who we are. And everybody can be a member. We have clinicians, we have educators, we have consultants like Karen Gregory, who you're about to meet, who are members, and we have the manufacturers and the distributors of infection control products. So it's such a unique combination of members. So anyway, I've been part of OSAP. I was hired as executive director in July of 2018. So almost 5 years.
Wow, buddy, congrats.
5 years, yes. And I just always love to say my very first podcast ever, I was a guest on the Tale of Two Hygienists. So cool.
Wow. I wish I had those like applause buttons here. Yay. No, well, well, thank you for taking a chance on us back then too, because man, what a dangerous route that could have been.
It was so much fun.
It was so much. And then you started your own podcast too, which is awesome.
Yes, you just put that little Katie Kurt bug in me. So that's
you're a natural. One of the best podcasting voices out there, Michelle Lee. And you brought on a friend Karen Gregory today. Karen, do you want to give us a little bit of background about who you are and where you're coming from?
Absolutely. I am so thrilled to be here. And you may be surprised to know that I'm actually a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. And I think I attended OSAP annual conference, I think it was referred to as the symposium at that time, about 12 years ago, and knew absolutely very little about dentistry. But I knew that I loved safety. And I was working for an organization that actually delivered safety training to both medical and dental practices. And it was my role really to develop the infection control program around dentistry. And I will say to you that OSAP is that organization that has taught me almost everything that I know. And to Michelle's point, the mixture of different types of folks that are represented in the OSAP community is unique. It is a place where you can go and ask questions. There's no competition. It is this group of people that all pull together to create a safe space in the dental community for both patients and for workers. The other thing that I think is really cool about OSAP is that it's growing and it's reaching outside of the dental healthcare practitioner environment into those medical environments where you may have a nurse who is overseeing a dental clinic and honestly doesn't really know how to handle that type of situation. So becoming a huge resource for clinicians outside of dentistry. So that's just a little bit about me.
I'm very intrigued. This is going to be a segue, but I have to go down this little rabbit hole for a minute. So before you got into seeing the behind the scenes of a dental practice,
Uh-huh.
what were your expectations versus what you found as far as like the level of knowledge, the level of taking infection prevention seriously in the dental office? Did you expect them to be, like a hospital level, like we're going to be on top of it, or did you have lower expectations, and what did you find?
I think it's interesting. My background initially was operating room. So when you talk infection control, it really is a different level. I found that the challenges in a dental practice are much greater than in an outpatient medical practice, and that there were a higher level of items that you had to take in consideration. Okay, so think about that. I mean, when you go in to see your internal medicine doctor, you're not spitting everywhere for lack, or
Please,
they're
hopefully
not
not.
spraying
Yeah.
you with water. And so there were a lot of infection control challenges. I found
Mhm.
that oftentimes, and still do, people are always trying to do the right thing, but sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And
Mhm.
that's where OSAP comes in and provides the training and the resources, the consultation that helps these frontline workers to understand these are the things that you need to do. Not only that, but this is why you need to do them.
Mhm.
And you're much more likely to get that better outcome if people understand the why behind what you're
For
asking
sure.
them to do. So I
Point of clarification, because I feel like even on just this podcast, but also in the world, the last couple of years, I feel like we've gone from infection control to infection prevention. Is there a right way of saying this?
Well, that is interesting, and I think there has been a shift, and we really should refer to it as infection prevention and control.
Oh, so
It
both. Okay.
Yeah, because really what you're trying to do is keep someone from getting infected. To me, when you say the word control, okay, we already have some infection and we're trying to control the spread. So really
Sure.
infection prevention and control. So thank you so much, Andrew,
No,
for asking that question.
I always feel like
Excellent.
a fool because I'm not really sure which one I was supposed to be using all the time, and I've used them both in this call already. I'm
Me
like, oh my
too,
gosh, so let's just do this.
obviously,
But no,
obviously.
that makes a lot of sense because yeah, there
Right,
are times for both of them. Like you are preventing, but then you're also controlling. That makes a lot
right,
of sense.
absolutely.
Michelle, before we get into kind of some of the other stuff we want to talk about today, can we circle back? We pushed this podcast back a little bit because you had this huge event earlier this month. Can you kind of give our listeners a little taste of what that was?
Yes, we had our annual conference and we were in Tucson, Arizona at this fabulous resort, the Westin La Paloma. And I say fabulous because it's truly, it's a resort. And you walk out of that ballroom and you look out these huge floor to ceiling windows and see this gorgeous mountain. And
Mm.
I don't know about you, Karen, but if you felt the same way, but I just get such energy from that.
Yeah,
And
it was amazing.
yeah,
And that's really not a good enough term for the scenery. The food was
the
amazing.
service,
The service was amazing. Yes, in addition to all of the presenters. So
oh,
I'm not going to steal your thunder, but it
yeah, the content was incredible. And some of the really cool things that we had happen, we had a mock trial
uh,
that had to do with water lines. Very hot topic, right?
Very hot
So
topic.
absolutely.
Yes.
this was a 2-hour presentation, and we had some of our subject matter well, we had actual attorneys playing attorneys, had someone else with legal background playing the judge, but we had great people to play the plaintiff, the defendant. We had the witnesses, and they presented this case that was written. The script was written by Dr. Shannon Mills, which many of you may have heard of. Dr. Mills, he is one of the leading experts, if not the leading experts, on dental unit water lines in the country. He was one of the key authors of OSAP's white paper on water lines that was published in 2018. And so they played out this 2-hour mock trial, and the audience, we were the jury. And so we voted at the end through our, meeting app to decide who was at fault. And it was I'm not going to give any of that away because it's a very interesting case to look at. And it
Mhm.
was between a dentist and the manufacturer of the dental unit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So all of our sessions are available online, and if someone wasn't able to attend in person, you can still register to attend the conference on demand. And I believe you have it's like 2 or 3 months to access all the recordings, earn CE. So I mean, it's great. Just go to our website, osap.org, and you can see the list of courses. But we had again some great topics, everything from antibiotic stewardship to hepatitis B, new guidance on that. We had our keynote this year. We have the Dr. John Zapp Global Lecture, and our guest was Rangina Hamidi, who is the former Minister of Education for Afghanistan.
Wow.
Absolutely fabulous woman, and told her story. And I had the pleasure of interviewing her on stage. And so I've gotten to know her very well over the past few months. And she has been teaching at Thunderbird School of Global Management, which is part of Arizona State University. And she will continue that, but she'll continue working with them from the Middle East. She's headed back over there so she can do more work from Dubai in Afghanistan. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
more to come, even talking to her about how we can help with the women she's helping, even from an oral health care perspective. So I'm going to help connect her with some other people as well. So I'm very excited about that. But the conference was great. The comments I continue to get is, how are you going to top this next year?
That's
Well,
always the bugger. Yeah.
Right?
yeah. And let me just say that Zap lecture was one of the most moving lectures I have ever attended. It really was amazing. And I was there. I'm going to go back and listen to the recordings, some of the recordings of the session that I actually got to attend, and some of the breakout sessions. It probably was the best annual conference that we've ever had. In
Wow.
all honesty, it was
Yeah,
great.
so
Man.
yes, my
Good luck
heart
with that,
was
Michelle.
already going up. Yes, my heart
Yeah.
was already going up about, like, how do you top next year? Yeah, right. But
Well,
it's great.
let me ask this though, because I feel like You talked about lots of really great topics, and I think going back and on demand for like the people that listen to this show, myself, great. But were the attendees, the people that were there in person, are these like the Karens of the world, or are these like people like me attending this type of conference?
Both, both. So you have the consultants who are there just refreshing, getting new information so that they can bring the most current information to their clients,
Hmm.
to the practices that they serve. But we also have people working in practices day to day who are there and who are,
Nice.
a lot of them are the ones that are passionate about infection control.
Hmm.
And there are some that, maybe they're not as passionate, but they were encouraged to come and now yeah, they
They caught
caught
the
the
bug,
bug.
so to speak.
Oh, but
Oh,
don't okay,
that's sad.
Michelle, you gotta talk a little bit about boot camp
Oh,
because Andrew, that would be the week I would recommend that you come
Mm,
to, and that's the basics. It's my favorite week of the year, where
yeah.
it's just A, B, C, D. These are the things, and this is the reason why you need to have this in place, and that's where you'll see a lot of those infection control coordinators, people that are on point and have that responsibility in their practice. So there's two great conferences, two great focuses that, again, reasons why OSAP is so wonderful.
Mhm. Yeah. So boot camp will be it's normally every January, but this year it's just a week later. It's the first week of February in 2024, and it will be in Atlanta. So registration for that will open within the next couple of months, believe it or not. It's already time. Yeah. So so we do two big live events a year.
it's amazing, and I like that there's it's not necessarily tailored to do two different groups, but that one is probably a little bit more appropriate for the other. I think that's really smart. Do they do also on demand for boot camp or not so
Yes,
much? Okay.
absolutely. That's one of those good things that came out of the pandemic, because we had to go virtual
Hmm.
during that time and found out that people really appreciated that opportunity. And so going forward, we will be recording all of our sessions. And so
I like
people
it.
have the opportunity to attend in person, which there's great advantages to that because you do get to
Hmm.
interact with the speakers. And
Absolutely.
I mean, especially like at boot camp, you walk away and, after sessions, you're talking to people from the CDC and getting your answers right then and there. But for those that travel, some people travel a long way. It does cut down on the costs
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
them. So, but that didn't hurt us at annual conference. We had members from Canada, from Ireland, from Brazil, from
Wow.
Mexico. So yeah, it was real exciting. Yeah.
So let me ask this. We're going to shift gears a little bit because I feel like you mentioned, dental unit water lines has been a hot topic for the last several years. What are you noticing is kind of like the new kind of trendy topic that everyone wants to talk about or everyone wants to either speak on or learn about?
Mm. I I'm gonna still say it's dental unit water lines.
That's the one.
That it really because of I think that there's so many different options for treatment and for maintenance that drives a little confusion, and the fact, that the whole package includes testing. How do you test? What are the options for doing that? So there is still a lot of room for education
Mhm.
because think about it, typically it's that frontline worker that is in charge of these processes. And to be honest with you, sometimes the manufacturer's instructions for use are a little bit challenging. And so having a third party explain that or talk about if you get this result, this is really what you need to do. I think that there's still a great deal of interest and need for education. I mean, there are still a lot of people who believe that if I'm using distilled water in my dental unit, then I do not have to worry about any kind of treatment or maintenance program. So just basic understanding that biofilm is there unless you have a sterile water delivery system.
Yeah. I think
You'd
you're
agree, Michelle? It's
I totally
pretty much the
agree.
hot topic, huh?
I totally agree. But another hot topic this year has been OSAP has relaunched or redone. Is that what I'm saying? We redid it.
Shot,
Reshot, recreated,
yeah.
Updated.
Thank you. If saliva were red, the video
Yes.
that so many people they viewed in dental school or dental hygiene school. They've seen it over the years, but it had been 20 years since that had been redone. Now, yeah.
Hold on. Sorry. I just wanted to let's soak this in. That was shot in the year 2000.
Yes. Yeah.
It felt older than that. I'm so sorry. It felt so much older. It felt like that was like an 80s shoot, but okay.
You have an assistant who answers a phone with a cord attached to it. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's been 20 years, but when I came aboard OSAP, I knew about this video because I remember seeing it I remember seeing one of the earlier ones in the 90s, believe it or not. But I wanted to redo this, but we needed funding to do that. And so thankfully, CareQuest Institute for Oral Health came through with a grant that allowed us to shoot this. We shot it at the Dentsply Sirona Training Academy in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is, if you've never been there, is a beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really loved are all the ops are white. So when you dye the saliva red, that red pops. So it helps to make the point even better. And so for those of you who may not know about this video, well, and let me say, you can go to the OSAP website and download it at no charge. Because of this grant, we are able to give it to everybody as a digital download. And so please go check it out. But this video, the purpose of it was to show by dyeing that saliva red, you can see the splatter and spray and where it goes in that op and why it's so important to clean and disinfect between the patients, and Karen Gregory was our patient during the filming of this video. So yes, if you download it, you get to see her beautiful face.
Right. Mostly my mouth open with things stuck in it. But also, Michelle, as part of that program, there is a facilitator's guide that actually helps you tell the story of if saliva were red. And there's the opportunity to get an hour of free continuing education. It's a really, really great setup, but I will tell you that it impacted me in the fact of just seeing everywhere that the splatter went, and the importance of surface disinfection and cleaning and disinfection, and also the value of personal protective equipment, especially a face shield that protects the face. It was truly amazing to see just exactly the cross contamination. For example, during the hygiene segment, because it's broken into hygiene, radiology, and also a surgical or restorative procedure. And during the hygiene recording, a splatter went all the way across the hygienist's neck. And I mean, I don't know that if it wasn't red, if there would be that reality that was there. But even in the nooks and crannies of that room, we found the red spatter as we were cleaning up.
We had
way past the 6 foot. I'm sorry, Michelle?
We had to clean it.
Yeah. And it was, you talk about, close 1 to 3 feet, but if you really think about how far 6 feet is, that's a pretty good distance. And we found that splatter, the red, greater than 6 feet away from where I was sitting. It was quite an experience, really was. And I think the response has been amazing. People, I think, appreciate the fact that it has been updated, but it really does paint this picture of this is what happens if you could see it. And please be aware of the things that you need to do to protect yourself and the patient, because the patient became an area for potential spread of contamination as well. And it was an event that I think impacted the way when I step on a stage to talk about the things that you should do. It makes a difference in what I say.
It's interesting about that is, 'cause you see it, I think it was probably like week 1 of hygiene school. Like, it's super
Right.
early on, right? Because
Yeah.
it's so important. But then you kind of, as your career evolves, you look at that video a little bit differently. You're like, okay, I'm not going to grab my glasses or my goggles or whatever. I'm not going to take those. That's a ridiculous mistake. We would never do that. I feel like so much emphasis pre-COVID was on the touching with the hands in the different places, right?
Right.
But to your point, Karen, not so much about the spray and the spatter everywhere.
Right.
And to
No, and
visualize that is so important.
it really is, and I think it's a great reminder. I mean, I think to your point, you were fresh, new in school, but Andrew, think about this as well. There's a lot of people that work in dental practices that never have had any formal education.
Hmm.
So they would not have had the opportunity to see. And now, since this is a complimentary offering, anybody can access it. And I think that is so cool. You can pull it down into your practice, have a lunch and learn, and see this video. Whereas before you would have had to pay a fee. And that really limited it, I think, to more of those educational, because that's usually where people would
Exactly.
say, oh, I saw it when I was in school.
Hmm.
But now it is a great reminder, and of course the CE, which I think even that's an added bonus that you can get that hour of CE. But it is the facilitators tool is it takes and actually breaks it down into individual slides, and you could see the contamination and actually bullet points to talk it through. So it's a great opportunity to review the risk and the strategies to reduce that overall risk of exposure.
We spent a lot of time on this call just talking a little bit about, the established person, whether they're a consultant or whether they're, practicing currently. I would love for, as we're finishing up, just, take a couple of minutes and talk to the new grad or the student and just kind of maybe give them like your favorite point or something for them to ponder on as it regards to either their future, their career or infection prevention and control or whatever.
Well, I would love to just add one more resource in there, especially for the new folks. And well, there's a couple of things, but another complementary resource is something that OSAP worked on with the CDC. Actually, we were working on it in 2020 in the middle of everything else with COVID, but it wasn't about COVID. But it's called Foundations Building the
Mhm.
Safest Dental Visit. And it's an online training tool on CDC's train system. And it is the perfect training for a new grad, someone that's new in the industry to go through and give you those foundational resources that you need. And when we've added staff members to the OSAP team, I've had them go through it because we have non-dental people that work
Mm.
on our staff, and it has been a great tool for them to learn.
I love it.
I love that question, and I think you may be a little bit surprised by my answer. And it is be prepared for difficult conversations, because oftentimes when you get into a practice, there are legacy behaviors. Well, we've been doing it this way for 16 years because that's the way Sally trained us. And
Hmm.
so don't give up. Explain. Go and pull in the resources that Michelle just referenced and say, look, this is why I'm saying what I'm saying as it pertains to infection and prevention and control measures, because I do see a lot of that. I was working with a practice not too long ago, and they were not doing surface cleaning and disinfecting correctly. And you think that's a basic. And
Hmm.
as I was explaining to it was a dental assistant, she said, "But I've been doing it like this for 9 years. This is the way that I was taught." And you know, I think as a new grad comes in, they are low man on the totem pole, but they hopefully have the cutting edge training that's going
Hmm.
to be needed. But using those resources, there's also infection control and practice. That might not be, what's the right, and they have team huddle and those kinds of things that are benefit of being a member of OSAP that you can use to educate. So I would encourage you to, the new grads to, you know, stay strong and have those difficult conversations and use the resources that are available to you to bring your practice to the highest level of care for the patients and also highest level of protection for workers.
You're right. I did not expect that response, but I'm very glad that was beautiful because it does transcend, even just this one topic. It's everything in dentistry. Like you can apply that knowledge. Okay, so if anyone wanted to reach out to you personally and ask questions or get clarifications, what's the best contact information for you all?
Karen, go first.
It's really simple. Karen at KarenGregoryConsulting.com. I have an Instagram account too, at Safety Stuff That Matters.
Oh, and if you're not following that, you've got to follow that. It is great. It's funny. It's informative. You just never know what's going to come out of her mouth. It's awesome.
She means that in the kindest of ways, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
It is wonderful. Yes. And then for me, OSAP.org is our website. If you have a question for me, it's mlee@osap.org. But, I got to do my call to action here. Please, if you're not a member of OSAP, please consider joining us. It is so inexpensive. It's a great value. I mean, if the practice wants to join, up to 10 members of that practice can be a member for $150 a year. That's a staff lunch. That's one staff lunch, right? And then there are some less expensive individual memberships as well. But just go to osap.org membership and all of the information is there.
I love it. I love it so much. And everyone, don't forget, that will also be in the show notes. So don't have to keep it in your little brains. Just go click on the title of the episode, go to the show notes, click on that, and look into that. Thank you both so much for being on today. I appreciate you, and I can't wait until next time.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.